Narratives of the Moving Mind is a series of real stories of our emotions and mental health brought to you by the White Swan Foundation. I'm Pavitra Jayaraman, and in this interview, I'm talking to Madhu Menon, who speaks about his depression and talking about it in the public domain. Thank you for joining us, Madhu. When did it first occur to you that there may be a problem?
Okay, so it's 2016, and I think this was back in 2008 or so. I was going through a tough time, and I couldn't explain any of it. I basically lost all motivation to do anything productive, and there were days that I would not even come into work, and I ran a restaurant at that time, and there were a lot of things to be done, and I knew they had to be done, but somehow I was feeling completely apathetic, and I had no will. Intellectually in my head, I knew what had to be done, but the part of the brain that makes you, go out and do those things just had taken a holiday or something. And the tough part was actually explaining to people what was wrong and why it hadn't got done. And it's especially painful when you're running the business, and your business might be suffering because of this. I think looking back, I probably went through a year and a half of being depressed before, at an intellectual level, I realized that there was something wrong with me, and this was not fitting into the pattern of how I had been behaving for the last, few decades of my life. So I did some reading, and I talked to a friend who I knew had been facing these problems, and she actually helped me a lot. She gave me the courage to actually go and see a therapist about it, and even then I took about a month to convince myself that yes, I need to go see a therapist, because it's not easy. The problems I say that the problems I say India has with mental health, the stigma attached to it, it's not just the country. I felt it myself. I didn't want to admit to myself that, and now I know there's nothing wrong with me. It's just a condition. It's a mental health condition, just like a physical health condition. But at that time, I felt like going to a therapist would have been some admission of weakness, and I didn't want to feel weak. And finally, I decided to go see a therapist about it, and he diagnosed me with clinical depression, and he started me off on meds. I think it was about 2 months before they started having noticeable effect, but it did help a lot. And after that, I went to see a therapist to help me cope with this cycle of apathy and worthlessness and negativity that had been built in my life for so long, and to help me deal with that. And so that's what happened.
You talked about the difficulty in explaining your symptoms to friends and family. Would you say that part of the problem was this persona that you project of being high functioning and witty in the public space?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You have this mask that you wear, especially when you're a relatively public figure. When you're running a restaurant, you face customers, and a lot of people know you, and you are very active on social media, and you're cracking jokes all the time, and people have this persona of you as this wisecrack, happy-go-lucky fella, and that doesn't reconcile with what I was feeling. And the thing is, I often use humor as a coping mechanism, and I'm often funniest, ironically, when I'm feeling really low. So it was hard to explain to people that, yes, I am posting a witty wisecrack on Facebook somewhere, but I'm feeling really bad, and I don't feel like getting out of bed, or I don't feel like moving from my chair. And sometimes, I didn't even feel like going to get groceries and stuff like that. And this is not something that ordinary people understand. The apathy, the feeling of emptiness, all those things are part of depression. And it was tough. And even my good friends, they would say things like, "You depressed? No, macha, what? You can't be depressed." And these are people I've known for many years, and so they just felt like, okay, that's not possible.
Is it that much more difficult for a man to talk about depression?
I believe so, yes. And when you think back about it, much of the reason that I didn't go earlier was because, fairly or unfairly, we expected to be strong. Think about all the things that you listen to when you're growing up. Strong men don't cry, and be strong and be there for everyone. And be a man.
Yeah.
And crying, emotion, sadness, all these are weirdly associated with women. And when it's both genders are just as susceptible to it. So it's not like we don't have feelings, or we don't feel happy or sad or whatever. So at some level I felt the societal conditioning had led to me thinking that if I admit to myself that I might be depressed, that I'm somehow weak and there's something wrong with me, and this is something that I would actively like to discourage people from believing. There's nothing wrong with you, it is just a condition that has to be treated. And yes, it took me a long time to do that, and I'm just glad I did it, actually.
And then you went and very publicly spoke about your depression on social media. What was the response to that like?
So one thing I've tried to do is never make it sound like I want pity from people, because people coping with depression do not need your pity. They need your understanding, which is different. But I also felt that because I had gone through the phase and I had got better, and in some circles I'm considered a quote-unquote influencer on social media for certain reasons, I thought instead of doing stupid contests for winning free gift vouchers, I might as well use it for a good cause. So one day I just decided to put up a post on depression, and started a hashtag, and started posting a lot of things that people say to you when you're depressed, and they mean in a good way, but that's because they don't know, like, just snap out of it, man, it's okay, go take a break, take a holiday, you'll be fine, oh, let's get a drink, it'll be okay. These are all common misconceptions, and you can't just snap your fingers and get out of depression. It doesn't work that way. So I started that hashtag and I kept pouring, and much to my surprise and happiness in a way, I found a lot of people use that hashtag and ran with it and posted their own experiences, and it started trending on Twitter. Of course, there was some blowback as well from people who said that we've all turned into armchair psychologists, and that's not the intent, of course. But the intent was to get people to realize that they are not alone. I think that is one of the main features of depression, is that you feel like you're all alone, and it helps if you think that there are other people with you, so that you don't feel like you're the only one suffering from this, and you can in fact go and do what other people have done and seek help, and it's perfectly normal. So I started the hashtag, and it started trending, and a lot of tweets were posted, and thankfully a lot of my friends wrote to me privately and said that they had in turn referred friends of theirs who were suffering from these conditions and recognized the signs of it, to go and seek help. And to me, I was very happy about that. So,
and since you've advocated heavily that people talk about it,
I take care that I talk about very personal stuff only to friends who understand it. But I do have friends who've gone through it, and they empathize, and empathy is very important in this situation. And they might have gone through something that you're going through and you haven't recognized, and they can help you. But I think it's a good system to have, but it's also very important to see a qualified, disinterested party like a therapist. Your friend is not your therapist, and your friend can't be objective about it. So go see someone who can put all this personal stuff aside and tell you exactly what the problem is, and how best to cope with it.
In all these years, what would you say is the one thing that stops people from seeking help?
One of the ways in which Indian society is different from Western societies is that we are very family oriented and not individualistic, and therefore we are very guided or swayed by what family members and their extended family members will say about us. Because of that, nobody wants to be seen as that crazy guy, and because of that, they don't want that stigma, therefore they don't seek help. Let me give you a prime example. We're sitting here in the NIMHANS campus. Now, if I told the average Joe I'm going to NIMHANS for something, for treatment, the first thing that's going to pop in their head is, this guy's crazy, he's deranged, or he has stability issues. And that's the thing, depression is not insanity. And I want people to realize that there are levels of depression, there are different kinds of mental health disorders, and 99% of them do not mean that you're insane. And that it's just like having a cold or a chest pain and going to a doctor in a hospital and asking them what's wrong. And hopefully they'll give you some medication or or a diet or whatever, and help you cope with it. Exactly the same thing with mental health.